years ago, 1992, 1994. So we were one of the chaps responsible for looking after silver, gilt, lay tables for state banquets, receptions, dinners, and everything like that. So it has been an amazing couple of days, and obviously it's been extremely sad and numbing to see the news of the passing. But incredible amount of media attention that's followed all that. But it seems to be that a lot of the networks and contacts and really told on the story. And that was when I first started. I was at Balmoral, and at Balmoral every year they hold a Phillies ball. And there the Royal Family attend, neighbours, friends, estate workers, staff. And it's all Scottish dancing, which is all the hailing and twirling and change of partners, which is lots of fun. Anyway, we went there and as members of staff, and the first dance was a Paul Jones. So it's a dance where all the ladies hold hands and dance in a circle in one direction, and all the gentlemen hold hands and dance in that circle in the opposite direction. So once the music stops, the person you're facing is your partner. And on this occasion, the music stopped, and it was Her Majesty. And oh gosh. So no, she looked at me and I looked at her, and she smiled, and she walked across. And fortunately, instead of being a dance, this was a slow quick step. And with a slow quick step, you have to put your arm around the Queen, which you shouldn't really be doing. So I had to think, gosh, what on earth can I do? So I thought, well, do this, but keep a gap and see if air dance. So I was looking at, I knew how to dance. Then the music started. And so then last week I said, I had also your question, hey, this kind of music, it's so hard to dance to, don't you think? Yes, Your Majesty. She answered the Queen, even more difficult. And then, the longest 5 minutes of my life. And then she said, so last thing she said, do you like Balmoral? So it was wonderful saying, I'm really thoroughly intrigued. So I'm so glad. I'm so glad my great-great-grandmother bought it, aren't you? Delighted, Your Majesty. And then after that, I think I went to the bar, had 2 stiff gin and tonics, and just about stopped shaking. But no, she was an amazing lady, incredible with sense of humour, and such an amazing role model now for us all. To follow her example, her dedication, her service. She'll be really sorting this. I don't think there's going to be anybody else part of the present who's never taken place. Thank you.
So my name's Philip Grindell, and about 35 years ago, I was in the Grenadier Guard. And if you're wondering, I haven't shrunk since then. I was actually just one of the smallest ones there. So we had just come back from a 2-year tour in Northern Ireland, and I found myself on my 3rd ever Royal Guard outside St James's Palace. So we used to stand outside the entrance to Clarence House. There was a number of different hosts, but on that particular evening it was Clarence House. So I want to set the scene. It is bloody freezing. It is ice cold. On the end of our bearskins, where the fur is, it is icicles. Our curb chains are made of brass, and they are freezing. And you're stood there for several hours. And we knew that Her Majesty and the Queen Mother were out at an event. And so we knew they were coming back, and they'd come back into that entrance. But what they don't do at St James's is ever tell you where. For security reasons, they only at the last minute decide which gate they're coming in at. So my job, because I was the senior guy, was to determine at what point we did the royal salute to the Queen. So all of a sudden, the gate to my left opens, and they've got the limousines coming in. So we throw up a royal salute, and they come in and turn right, and she's right next to me, and the gates to Clarence House begin to open. And it is gaining, freezing weather, and the rear window comes down. And I'm stood there like rigid, it made me bloody freezing. And she heard this little voice saying, "Good evening, Guardsman." And I said, "Good evening, Mum." She said, "It looks very cold out." And I said, "It is very cold out." And she said, "Well, would some cocoa help?" And there's like a pause, and thinking, not sure that's within the rules, but she's the Queen. "Yeah, that'd be lovely, thanks so much." "Lovely, have a good evening," and off she puts the window up and off she goes. And my oppo says to me, "I bet we never see any cocoa." So I stood there for about 5 minutes, carrying on, and then the gate opens again, and this probably like Martin, I like Martin, comes out, bless him, with a tray and 2 hot steaming cups of cocoa. At which point he says, Her Majesty said you can stand down and drink your cocoa. So we're stood there, bare skins off, with this waiter, and I remember having my hand in my pocket drinking cocoa. When I see round the corner, the officer and my platoon sergeant marching round to inspect us. And I'm thinking, they're never going to believe this. I'm there with my mug of cocoa, drinking this as quick as I possibly can. And my sergeant, I could hear him thinking, and I said, no, before you say anything, you need to speak to the butler, because he'll tell you the truth. So I told him the story. And the officer said, shit, I need to go back and telegram the command, the colonel, because he's going to have to telegram so-and-so, and they're going to have to thank the Queen. And then as we were doing this, I kind of finished my cocoa, we put our cups down, we stood back out, and the gate opens again, and the Queen's coming out this time to go home to Buckingham Palace. And there's this melee going on with us trying to put our hat back on again, and trying to get the salute up, and the officer trying to get his sword out, and all this sort of stuff. And she again, the window goes down, and good evening, and off she goes. So that's the story. But just as a side note, if there's a toast today to the monarchy, you won't see me toasting the Queen. And that's because I was from the Grenadier Guards. So it's quite apt that we now have King Charles. Because the last King Charles, the first King Charles, was of course executed, and his son decamped to Belgium. And my regiment was formed as mercenaries in Belgium to protect the King. So when King Charles II marched back into the UK to regain from Cromwell, he came back with what we would call the 1st Regiment of Foot Guards. And because of that, our regiment never swears allegiance to the monarch, because our allegiance is not in question. At the Battle of Waterloo, we defeated the French Imperial Grenadiers, who were there, SAS of the French Army then, which even now is not. So what we did there was we stole their bearskins, which is why the Foot Guards now wear bearskins. And we took their name, which is why they're called the Grenadiers. So it's the only regiment that took its name in battle. So that's why the Guards wear bearskins, that's why we're called Grenadiers, and that's why on Monday it'll be Grenadier Guardsmen who carry her coffin. And they are from what's called the Queen's Company, which will now be the King's Company. The monarch is the company commander of that particular company, and they are the only ones who are allowed to carry her, the monarch's body at its funeral. But it's also why none of us will ever swear allegiance to the monarch, because we don't need to. So a little bit of history for you, which you can lie about on Monday, pretend you remember it or knew it, maybe as you go along, whatever, they won't know. But that's some of the formalities of what happened on Monday. I think I see Simon.
Right, to 2013, I was a Metropolitan Police Officer, as Phil alluded to. My career up to that point had been on the Public Order Unit and the Firearms Team, so I'd very much been working in a different part of London before I kind of moved effectively to Buckingham Palace, and had a massive change in my working environment, to say the least. So during my time with the Royal Family, some of the biggest event I did was the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge's wedding. That was some of the biggest high-profile event. But then everything we did had a degree of being kind of high-profile and certainly high pressure. Our job was to provide the security bubble for Her Majesty the Queen, Prince of Wales, King Charles as he is now, to do their job. That's what we were trained to do. Our position was afforded to allow them to work, and for that they had to trust us. They had to trust that we would do the job that we ultimately are paid to do, but ultimately trained to do, and that is ultimately to preserve life. That's what we're there for. With all the grandiose of being a royal bodyguard, etc., your job ultimately is there to preserve life. And for that they have to trust you. But for that you have to build up a rapport, and you have to kind of interact. And as Phil has kind of already said, Martin, have you got a turn yet?
Yes.
As was probably what Martin's already said, you have to kind of interact with the royal family. If you can't speak to them, then it's clearly not the job for you. And you've most probably already been chosen as protection officer on your communication skills in any case, because that is something that you use far more than the hard skills of shooting, fighting, driving, etc. So you need to be able to talk to people. And they will interact with you, because that's how you build the rapport. You cannot stand there in the shadows as a silent individual, because they will constantly talk to you, as Phil alluded to, and sometimes at the most surprising moments that you'll ever expect. Up in Scotland, the Queen used to go to picnics. You alluded to picnics, Martin?
Not yet.
Yeah. Royal family would love a picnic, and you get invited to Balmoral for the weekend, and you think this is great, and I'm going to have the best food that you could possibly get in that nice castle setting, and the royal family actually take you out for a picnic. So in this picnic, we're there at one particular one, Honker by the river. And we're there, and so I open the door for Her Majesty the Queen to kind of step out, and she's telling her guest purely why we are there, who we are, etc., etc. And she said, yes, and they're really good. They even count the corgis. And at that point, on cue, my colleague opened the back of the car, and he was counting the corgis out one by one. 1, 2, 3, 4. And she looked at her guest with a wry smile and said, I told you. Almost said, so, well, we're not making it up. Because actually, the corgis did fall part of our responsibility, because we used to lose them in the long grass. Long grass in Scotland, and then you've had this perfect security event, and now you've got a missing corgi. You've got to go and find it. So, I wasn't taught that on any of my protection courses of how to find a corgi, but nonetheless, you kind of put it into your security plan. If you want to know what pressure is like as a royalty protection officer, yes, you are out there, you are, without wishing to be too grandiose, you are the only person that stands between a member of the royal family and somebody who wish to do them harm. So when you put them out in a public scenario, you are the only person there between them and the greater harm. So that's pressure, and that's extreme pressure. And certainly in my first royal walkabout, 15 minutes down in Brighton with the Queen, I got back in the car and I thought my head was going to explode. 15 minutes of looking at everybody, looking for the danger cues that I expect to see, looking for things I don't expect to see. Why is that person not smiling? They're not smiling because actually they're blind, so they can't actually see that the Queen is coming towards them. An overreaction is as bad as an underreaction. But we come back to pressure. And I was a new protection officer, first tour of duty at Balmoral, and we go to church in the Sunday morning. Senior protection officer is giving the postings. And he said, right, okay, this is how we're going to do it today. Simon, you're going to sit there. Dave, you're going to sit over there. And there was almost an air of relief that went around the rest of the team when I was posted to that particular seat there. And if I'm aware of it, I just thought, okay, that's fine. New boy gets the kind of maybe the tough job. And at that point, I didn't know how tough that job was going to be. So Dave gets to sit over there, and Rob gets to sit over there. Senior protection officer comes back and says, are you happy with everything? And I said, yes. Yeah. He said, how's your singing? And I said, well, being Welsh, pretty good at it. So that was fine. He said, good. He said, how's your singing of the national anthem? And I said, yeah, pretty good. Know the words, been singing it since I was a child, know what it's all about. So that's good, he said, because you see the seat directly opposite you, the Queen's going to be sitting in that. She likes to know that all the protection officers kind of know the words of the national anthem. So now I'm getting why there was that air of relief across the rest of the team, because I'm going to be face to face with the Majesty of the Queen. Church service starts, it proceeds without any issues whatsoever until we get to the end of the service. End of the service, the organist strikes up the first couple of bars to God Save the Queen. At that point, the Queen had not looked at me whatsoever. While she knew I was there, she didn't look at me. But as soon as those bars started, her gaze just fixed on me. And now there is nothing between me and the Queen, only about 2 meters, and I am singing the national anthem to the best that I can. Whether it's in tune or not, I don't know. But for the whole of that 30 seconds, she fixed her gaze on me. If you want to know what pressure is, that's pressure. Certainly working for the Queen, it's kind of great times. I did an interview this morning and we were chatting away with the royal historian and so on and so forth. And we had a little bit of a disagreement as to whether the role made the person or the person made the role. I was very much in the latter. I felt that the Queen made the role of the Queen. If that makes sense to everybody. It didn't shape her, she shaped me. Certainly when we look at it now and what the new King is going to take forward, that is what the Queen has created. She's modernised that family, she's modernised the institution of the monarchy, and I think now Prince of Wales, King Charles will take that forward. I think, yeah, that's kind of my piece that I share with you all today.